Okay, we're live. Great. Thanks for joining in, Japji and B. Do let me know if you have any questions via audio and or via text. I'm not going to be too loud because my daughter's asleep in the place that we're in, um, the Airbnb that we're staying at. I'll show you guys around as well in a minute. But Dashko said no. So, oh, 'cause she's in her night suit. But anyway, so let's get to the topic. If you guys have any questions, do keep writing them or put your audio on and just say. So, uh, does anyone have any questions? If not, we'll get started. Japji did a great post, and her post always so inspirational. One of the things she alluded to is the 80-20, which she's spot on. And to give you a bit of background on the 80-20, there was a Italian economist called Fredo Pareto, and the 80-20 goes by a couple of different names. It goes by the Pareto principle. It also goes by the name 80-20 rule or 80-20. So one of the three usually is what it's known by. And it's talked a lot about in economy and in a lot of books where they look at different population groups. And so this is, if you Google search it, and in Google Scholar, you'll see lots of academic books, papers that use this term. Now, the fundamental thing behind it is that what Pareto found is 80% of the wealth in Italy at the time, and this I think was in the 1900s, 80% of the wealth in Italy was in the hands of 20% of the people. Now, this is interesting, but it's not as remarkable as what he found next, which is that the same rule applies to every single country that he studied and also applies to manufacturing and also applies to other industries as well, including nature. So let me elaborate on that. What they mean by that is 80% of your yield or results will come from 20% of your efforts. So there's 20% of the things that you're doing, which are the key components in making 80% of the difference. Now, this is really important to understand from our perspective in terms of what we're doing, from a kind of personal management perspective, but also from a health perspective. So the way I translate this, but let me backtrack, let me go into some more examples. So another thing that they found in industry, for example, is that 20% of the workers were producing 8% of the results. In sales, there was 20% of a workforce that was producing 80% of the profits. And in business, the 80% of revenue comes from 20% of the customers. So the reason this is important is because from a business perspective, you don't want to treat everyone equally. And from a self-management perspective, you don't want to treat all things equally. Now, I have a to-do list here, and it's got lots of things on there, like have a cold bath. It might say post on Instagram, all of those types of things. And there's kind of 10 items that I've been able to shave it down to. But actually, out of those 10, there's probably two things that I'm doing which are really impacting on the quality of my life the most. And the other things are nice, but they're not game changers. And the idea is if you're able to identify what those 20% of the things are, then you can significantly improve the quality of your life or your outcomes by doubling down your efforts on that. So rather than treating everything equally, if I know that actually when I exercise, my mood is a lot better, my emotional stability is better, my productivity is better, my energy is better, my parenting is better, then it makes sense for me to think, okay, well, actually, I need to make sure I exercise every day, whether it's 10 minutes, because, and maybe double that. And maybe it will double my productivity and double my energy with my kids and that type of thing. So the idea is that if you can identify what those 20% of the things are, then you can actually really make a significant difference in your outcomes. Now, I did this with my business. Actually, I applied 80-20 a couple of years ago. I think it was about 2 years ago. And I realized that messaging my patients was the thing that increase my patient numbers. Not Instagram, not advertising, not Google AdWords, not anything else, not flyers, not emails. The only thing that actually increased my patient numbers was the most significant thing. There were other things, and they did all have some benefit, including YouTube videos, and they added to the whole kind of ecosystem that I was trying to create. But the most important thing was actually messaging patients back and messaging them periodically every couple of months and finding out how they got on. And within a month, I was able to double my business. Now, that sounds like unfathomable, but it did happen. I experienced that practically. It took a lot of work because instead of spending an hour sending messages a day, I was spending like 3 hours. But it is possible. And the point of illustrating this rule is I had a conversation with Jazz last week, who's one of the challengers, and she was talking about, oh, I can't, I don't know what to eat for breakfast. I don't know what to eat for lunch. I don't know what to eat for dinner. And I kept going back to the 80-20 rule. I said, okay, well, if we apply the 80, we can apply the 80-20 rule to everything, right? So if we think 80-20 rule with your diet, what is the worst part of your diet? And for her, it's dinner. That's when she kind of has the most carbohydrate heavy and less nutritious meal. So then if we focus our energies on just making sure that you get a good dinner, a healthy, nutritious dinner instead of binging, then that's going to make a significant impact on your getting you towards your goal, rather than saying, well, breakfast you need to do this, lunch you need to do this, dinner you need to do this, and you do breakfast okay, but you fail lunch and dinner, and a month later you haven't really moved the needle on where you should be. Whereas if we did that with dinner, where we know that's what needs to be addressed, then we're going to get significantly more progress. And that's where the genius comes in, and that's why you need a coach, because a coach can help you identify what those key things are for you, what those 1 or 2 key things are in your life that you really need to double down on to get the best results. And that's what this is about. So to apply the 80-20 rule, if you think about all the things you do from a health and fitness perspective, it might be waking up early so you can get a workout in. It might be going swimming once a month. It might be doing your Beachbody on demand. It might be getting enough sleep. So if you list 10 or 20 things, it take you like 2 minutes. If you list 10 or 20 things that you're trying to do to improve your health, and intuitively you will know what the 1 or 2 things are, whether it's meditation, whether it's going for a long walk during a lunch break. You will know what 1 or 2 of the things are which are moving the needle the most, that are giving you the most impact. If you don't, you can always message me and we can have that conversation together and try and figure out what it is. And when you do that, then you've got to double down your efforts on that. So if you're walking for half an hour a day, then you've got to double that time. And then if you pick something up, you've got to take something out. So then you drop some of the other things. Now for me, when I did this with the business, I started spending 3 hours sending messages instead of 1. And that meant I wasn't making YouTube videos. I wasn't doing as many Instagram posts. I wasn't doing other stuff. And actually, because I saw the results, it wasn't such a big deal. It's actually quite insightful having somebody give you that insight and then being able to apply it and getting the results with it. So that's where the coaching really comes in. And that's what I want all of you to do. Is this week's homework is to address the 1 or 2 things that is really giving you the best bang for your buck in terms of your energy invested and the outcome that you're getting out of it. Now, for most people, that's going to be exercise. And for some people, that's going to be diet, because like people like Japji, really good on exercise anyway. So she's just done everything in addition. She's already doubling down on things. So now we've got to look at, okay, well, what can we double down on more? And then what can we eliminate in order to create time? So if you're doing, let's say, Darshan is sitting over there, she's doing now T20, which is 20 minutes a day. Actually, when she gets into week 2 and she starts to find her flow, and she's already noticing changes and she's already feeling sore, then what can she do next? So she could either supplement T20 with another program. So she could do the yoga, or she could do Pilates, or she could do stack the workout. So she could do 2 T20s, so she gets through the program faster, so she can start another program. Or within that time, she can scale it, so she can start to add some resistance bands or weights for the exercises in which you can do that. These are examples. It's not a prescription. The other thing she could do is think, okay, well, I'm doing this now. What else can I do? So from a cardio perspective, maybe I could go for a walk around the living room in the evenings. When the kids get to bed, I'll do 10 minutes, just walking up and down, use my phone and count my steps. And I'll try and get as many steps as I can in 10 minutes. So that's going to give a different type of workout. But fitness there's lots of components to it: strength, endurance, mobility, and balance. So those are the 4 components. And we can address things, different types of interventions we can use for each one. The programs are designed to incorporate all of them, but if one person has a weakness, like Japji is a keen runner, so endurance isn't going to be a weakness for her. So strength would be something we'd work on. She's done fantastically over the last couple of months. So one of the things that would work on for her is her core stability, making sure her back is strong, because she's had a back injury. So that will keep her being able to be consistent. The other thing would be, like for her, would be potentially incorporating some more cardio. So it might be going for 10-minute run, then doing beach burn demand. So these are just examples. Chelsea's a legend. Instead of listening to me, or she's listening to me, she's also walking around the room, and that's a great thing to do. I think sitting at a desk is one of the worst inventions of the industrial revolution, and it's the tech revolution, which is probably the next one, because we're all stuck behind a laptop. I've been stuck behind this laptop now for a couple of hours, and it's really it's terrible for our health. If going back to Manpreet's question around why isn't now maintaining your health take so much effort, is because lifestyles have changed. If you look back 50 years ago, we wouldn't be doing anything tech related. All of our occupations would be in some form physical. Even if it was bricklaying, knitting, whatever it was, we'd be using movement, and we'd be doing a lot more movement throughout the day, that non-exercise associated thermogenesis that we talk about. So building that in conjunction to your workouts and your programs, because those are important too. Galen, who's known as being the first, well, the kind of founding doctor of Greek medicine, says that unless you're out of breath and sweaty, it doesn't count. So walking is good, but you've got to look at things from a holistic perspective. There's lots of different components. Bees walking on the beach, that's amazing. You're both legends. You see, so we've got one girl who's like, Superwoman at home, and she's managing to walk around and find time to listen to this. And B, who's actually another Superwoman walking around the beach. So well done to team. This is going to be one of the best teams around in terms of your dedication and your grit. And there's another thing, I like talking about books. So there's a book called Knowledge is Power. And the 80-20 principle, by the way, there's a big fat book on it, which is pretty much the only book written on it, the only book which is acclaimed, written on it. And I'm actually finding my way through that. It's quite a dense book. It was written about 20 years ago. But there's a book called Knowledge is Power, and they looked at inner city schools, and they found which ones are doing fantastic, and there was about 2 of them in the whole of America. So they tried to identify what are the things those schools are doing, and they were instilling 5 key values within the children. One of them was grit, and there's lots of research on grit, and there's a book written on it, and I'll probably talk about that in another team call. But grit is your resilience, perseverance, your stick-to-itness, and that's a really important characteristic of success as well, which is to just keep going and never give up. Just to decide that when you do something, come rain or shine or whatever happens, you lose a limb, God forbid, but you will not give up. And whether it's work-related or health-related, that's something that is really important. And if you look at there's actually a podcast on this. I think it's called Failure, and it's interviews with lots of famous, successful people, and it just focuses on all of the failures that they had. And the people consistently talk about how success was just a couple of steps beyond their biggest failure. So although we might feel like we had a day where we failed in terms of the diet and we might feel bad, I think that's actually good, because when we experience that, it makes us reconnect with why we started in the first place. So provided it's not every day, or it's not a failure that lasts like 6 months, then it's a positive. So getting back to the point, 80-20 rule. Homework is to identify your one or two thing that's giving you the best results, whether it's walking, exercise, diet, particular type of thing that you're eating, or dietary change like reducing carbohydrates or cutting out sugar, or increasing fat intake, healthy fat intake. So finding out what that one thing is, and then thinking about it. If you're having any problems discovering what that is, message me and I will go through the process with you. But have a lovely week, everyone. Really, really just proud of all of you for all of the effort that you're putting in. One of the things I was just talking to Darshakor about was how comparison is not great. So we hear about in the group about all of the successes and everyone doing well. And if you look at my wife's before and after pictures, she's doing really well. Her body adapts quickly, which is helpful. But it's not about comparison. It doesn't matter how well one person does or how well the other person does. The only thing is that we're trying our best. And as long as we're progressing, that's all that matters. So for some people, if you did 1,000 steps and you're now doing 1,100 steps and you haven't lost any weight, but you're actually healthier, then because you're doing more, then that's a win. And it's about celebrating those wins. It doesn't matter if a person is doing 50,000 a day, that's great. But they may have started at 50,000 a day, which means that they haven't progressed. So it's just about bettering yourself. It doesn't matter what anybody else is doing. And when I talk to people in the clinic and they talk about exercise, and I say, Arnold Schwarzenegger, who's famously known for his bodybuilding, he started off at 10 press-ups. So don't be ashamed at where you're starting off, because we all start off from scratch, and doesn't matter whether somebody starts off a little bit ahead of us. As long as you stick with it, you're going to succeed. So well done to everyone. Again, really proud of you. Thanks for all of your hard work. Any questions, do keep messaging me. Any issues, do keep messaging me. Have a great rest of the day and rest of the week. And I'll be back in London tomorrow. So I'll be able to catch you on calls tomorrow as well. So if you need me to give you a call, let me know. Resistance bike, great. Static bikes are great. One way that you can do it, I used to do, which I think is really useful, is you can get an interval timer on your app, on your phone. It's an app, and then you can do like 1 minute on, 1 minute off, or 1 minute on, 2 minutes off. It depends on your fitness level. You're super fit, so you could do 1 minute on, 1 minute off, and then for that 1 minute you go maximum intensity. And there's Beachbody programs are all high intensity interval training, and apart from Tai Chi and yoga and Pilates, but the exercise based ones. So when you do exercise in that way, when you're going maximum effort, you recruit more muscle fibers, you suck up all the glucose in your bloodstream, and you get more metabolic changes. So you increase the right hormones, you burn more fat, you continue to burn more fat after you're done exercising for up to 24 hours, which is perfect. Just sitting down and sort of burning fat because the workout you did, 20-minute workout you did in the morning, that's phenomenal. But there is a documentary by Michael Mosley. It's on BBC Horizons. It's called it's about interval training. If you type in interval training, it'll probably come up. I'll post a link in the group. And in there, he does 3 minutes of exercise 3 times a week. And it shows it was equivalent to an hour's walking in terms of his metabolic markers, so his cholesterol, his blood sugar, things like that. But he's going like super intense during those 3 minutes. So he was doing like 30 seconds on, 30 seconds off, 30 seconds on, and a couple of cycles of that. So with 10 minutes on the static bike, if you did, say, 2 minutes, 3 minutes warm up, and then you did 3 working sets. So you did 1 minute high intensity, and you can do this in the swimming pool, you can do it in running, you can do it in on steps on the stairs in your house, you can do it on a bike. A bike is a great way because it's not easy to get injured on a bike, whereas easier to get injured on the other types of things. You need a swimming pool for the swimming one. But that's brilliant, high intensity interval training. So the more the better. If you could do a couple of times a week of that, because it is quite intense. And if you set the interval timer, then it's objective. You know how you're improving, and you know that 1 minute or that 30 seconds is going to end soon. So it's good rather than just going on. Walking is the best. Helping to shift the hips and the glutes. Yeah, genetically, women have a predisposition to gain weight at the hips and the glutes. It's called pear shape, and men have a predisposition to gain weight on just the abdomen. So that's why you get men with a beer belly sometimes, even if they don't drink beer. There's a lot of people in our community who have that belly, sometimes quite a large belly, unfortunately, and they don't drink alcohol. But it's that genetic predisposition to store fat in the middle. So we've got to work on that. And the way to work on that, for those of you who have that issue, is the training is a must. So you've got to have your baseline of your beach body on demand workout. On top of that, you want to do as much movement through the day as possible. You want to reduce, you want to do intermittent fasting, which is great. And from personally, like, I generally don't have a belly most of the times. I think I've only had it before my brother died. I think that was the only time I had a belly. And actually, when I was running, ironically, I was doing a lot of running, but wasn't doing workouts. So one thing you want to do is the intermittent fasting. And second thing you want to do is you want to work on the tone of the abdomen through planks and side planks while sucking your tummy in, which is a great way to activate those muscles. Transverse, which gives you that thin waist, on top of obviously your workouts to develop the muscles on top of that, which is the beach body on demand. But yeah, hopefully that answered your questions, the questions that the group had sent in. Hope you guys have a great day, and enjoy the rest of your evenings, and speak to you guys tomorrow.